Hi everyone, welcome to the 32nd Singapore International Film Festival. I'm Mysara, and today we have joining us from Indonesia, Kamila Andini, the writer and director of Yuni, starring Aravinda Kirana. Thank you for being with us today, Kamila.
Thank you as well for inviting the film, screening the films as well. It's really good to actually to be offline again and watching the cinema again. I'm so sad that maybe I couldn't be there, but at least we can have a little talk virtually, so it's good.
Yes, yeah. So I managed to catch your film, and I think as a Singaporean Malay woman who has like Minangkabau as like ancestry, yes, I have family in Indonesia, so it's something that's very interesting, because it's something that it seems very far away, but also very relatable, growing up in a Muslim household. So, but first, I just want to hear from you. It had its first world premiere at the 2021 Toronto International Festival, where you won the platform prize. So, how has the experience been so far?
Well, it was very emotional experience. I think in terms of Uni, I don't know why, but this is a very emotional project for me since the very beginning. Yeah, premiering in Toronto, actually, I had a very hard time, I think, frustrating time during the post-production because the film is actually co-produced with several countries. Even I have to do the sound design in Singapore supposedly, but because of the pandemic I have to do everything online, and it was like really frustrating for me. It's very hard to not be able to sit in the studio with the designers and not be able to talk in details for the film. So that's one of the reason I try my best to fly away to Toronto, even with that condition. I have to quarantine for 2 weeks. But yeah, I mean, the first day I'm out of the quarantine, I go straightly to the screening, and that was actually the first time I watched the film, like everything. So that was actually my first time watching the final film. So I was crying as well in the introduction. I couldn't bear my emotion actually. But yeah, it's been really tough to finish this film and also to screen this film and promote the film in this situation. But I think it's at the same time it's very special, I think, for me to release this particular story.
And yeah, I think I felt that this Uni is very significant, especially because recently Indonesia raised its minimum age for girls, the marriage age, right, from 16 to 19. So could you take us through the thought process of writing the script and the story? Did that had any effect in the process itself?
Yeah. Well, the story idea is actually, it's based on true story. So it's a story that I heard in 2017 from a woman who worked in my house, and she had a daughter who about to deliver a baby, to give birth, but she was only 17 at that time. So it was kind of a complicated pregnancy, and she was really worried for the daughter. And then suddenly she started telling me the stories of how she got married. And it was actually not my first time as well hearing this kind of story. Like, I met a lot of girls who married in such a young age, and I heard stories like this like thousands of times. But I don't know why, but this particular story kept coming to my head as well, in a way that also for her and her husband, that's not what they plan to be. Like, they want the daughters to actually get an education and working in some company and things like that. But in that point, I realized there is a structural conflict within the society that it's much more subtle, or the conflict was very not in the surface. It was sort of like underneath. That's also one of the things that I know that Indonesia just turned the minimum age of marriage to 19. But the fact is that a lot of us is prefer more to marriage under the religion instead of the state, makes it still eligible to be married on the fifth at 15th or something like that. So it doesn't matter the law is, but the religion somehow also have a lot of power in the case, and this is very structural, I mean, within the society. And yeah, with I started, and then one day I remember I talked to Ifa, the producer, and I said like to him, I think I have to talk about this now. I have two daughters in my hand. I want them to be as free as they would in terms of reaching their dreams. So I need to talk about it now. So yeah, then I start to write about Yuni. It's a lot of questions about being a woman and as a woman as well in Indonesia, I think.
And this is not your first film where you highlight a community that's outside of urban Jakarta, right? What are the challenges of bringing out stories, from areas that may be less known to people outside of Indonesia?
For Yuni, I think it's important to set not within Jakarta. I mean, one of the reason why I want to make it this film as well as that over the year we always have a lot of teenage films produced in Indonesia, but most of them actually coming from the big cities. There are teenage characters that coming from Jakarta and big cities, where I think most of the teenagers in Indonesia actually lives in area like Yuni, not in the big city, and they're facing real problems there. And so I started to find this place. I want to, because I also play with textures in the film. I want to have a place where it's sort of like in between, like in between big cities. So they have like mixed cultures in a way. And a lot of area in Indonesia actually like this. The challenge was for Uni compared to my previous one. I usually use actors and actresses, non-professional actor and actress coming from the area, because I also have concerns about language. I usually use local language in my films. And I wanted to do the same thing with this one. But turn out it's not that easy, because the film also sensitive in a way. It's a bit hard to find a girl in the area who brave enough to pull this kind of scenes, and I don't want to jeopardize them as well in a way. So there's some point when I realized I have to find a girl from the big city who can actually play for them. So this is the biggest challenge, I think. I mean, in the same time, I want the rawness of the textures in the area, and it's supposed to be in the area. But in a way as well, I need to find actors and actresses who has voices, who brave enough to tell the stories, because again, I don't know what will happen in the release and everything, and this actress and actor has to have the same vision like myself. Yeah,
and I think you have like a great cast, and I think a lot of people, people have watched it. I've heard that, they are very impressed by Arawinda's acting, and how has it been like working with her and also the other like cast members, talking about something that's very sensitive, was there any form of barriers when you were directing them?
Well, thankfully, since the beginning, especially the girls, they really happy about the script. They felt like one of the girls even for Sarah and also they come from the area like that, so they feel like this is my friend's stories. This is the stories that actually coming from my place, and they felt that they want to be part of the film because of that. They felt like they can tell something about it. Even one of the cast, it's actually happened to her. She was also asked to be married with someone much older than her when she was 19 at the time. So a lot of people in the cast, they experience this kind of thing in a different way, of course. So the discussion was very interesting. Since the beginning, I know that Yuni is about conversation, female to female conversation, and that what I want them to have as well during the shooting and then the process making of the films. I let them being themselves and their perspective on woman and on femininity and on body. So if you see the films as well, I let them to be their opinion about it. Some of them never had a chance to talk about this thing, so I let them be like where they are. Some of them already more progressive in terms of talking about this, so I let them also being where they stand. So these kind of things is what we talk about. We talk about a lot of things. It's really is just a girls' conversation during the process. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think one scene that struck me, even though we of course Yuni is like the main character, was Sarah's story. So Sarah is played by Ning Risma, and I watched her in like more comedic like films and shows, right? The TV series. So it was very interesting to see her in this light, especially the part where, like she was supposed to get married and it was very heartbreaking. Did you have any form of, backlash, I guess, seeing these stories? Were there people who told you like, hey, like Kamila, like let's not do this topic, it's still too sensitive?
I think I am actually the one who realized that in the beginning. I mean, when I decided to write Uni in the first place, I remember that I'm actually begging to Eva that please let me please let this project allows me to actually telling the truth, and I want to be very open as possible in this film. I want to be able to make any scene that I want. I want to be able to tell things that I want to tell, and I know it will be hard, but I really need that in this film. So it was very challenging for Eva as well to find partners actually. So that's one of the things that we actually realized since the beginning, that everyone that is involved in the film has to have the same vision like we do, like I do. So even like in the casting and partners, producing and everything, so everyone's in this film actually they realize this, but they have that same vision, they have that same voice to say. So so we don't have that because we already know, like we even talk to each of them that this will be sensitive, I need to be very honest. So if you are ready or you want this, please, we are more than happy for you to be involved. But if you have doubts and it's not comfortable for you, we totally understand it as well, and we don't want to push anyone to be involved in this kind of thing. So those kind of conversation we have to everyone, crew, team, partners, cast in the very beginning. Yeah.
And it's gonna be out to the Indonesian public in December, right? If I'm wrong.
Yeah.
So how are you feeling about that? Are you anticipating any form of reaction from the public?
Yes, this is hard, but actually I was surprised that the film was not censored, and it's 17 plus categorized, and yeah, but still I don't know what people will think. But my partners were very very optimistic about it. The more, I mean, we already screened the films to some people right now, and even to my family, I was like, my big family, I was like really worried for them to watch it. I was like keep telling the warning before, like, okay, this is gonna be sensitive, yeah, so be prepared and things like that. But actually after they watch it, they felt like it's they can really feel Yuni and her conflict, so they understand her well. So yeah, let's see, but let's see what will happen.
Yes, I'm sure. Yeah, it'd be quite like a conversation, right? And I think like what I mentioned earlier, it's something like it's a movie where even if you're not born in an area like Yuni, you can relate it. It's something that I do feel whenever I go back to Padang to see my family and stuff like that. How do you hope, I think, your viewers, especially women who watch it, or what do you hope is a takeaway from it?
As I said before, I want this. I mean, when I first hearing about the story, it was very reflective to me. Like what I said before, the story kept coming to my head. I kept thinking about this. I want to discuss this with people. It was very, very reflective. And I wonder if a film could be that reflective as well. And I said also before that it's what I want to do in the film is I want to have a conversation. Like I want to have a female conversation in this case. So that's why in the film I don't want to judge. I don't want to state anything when you see it as well. It's a serene, reflective conversation that I want to make in the film. So I hope, the women who watch it, they can also discuss it again with another women. They can have their own. They can liberate their stories. They can liberate their opinion outside the cinema as well.
Yeah, it's definitely important to just get the stories out there in the first place, right?
Yeah.
And there's something that I've been wanting to ask. The significance of the color purple to Yuni. Is there a reason why purple?
Actually, this is also coming from a real character. I have a good friend named Lasri. She is actually very obsessed to purple color. And I know her quite a long time. She's a kind of girl who is exactly like Yuni. So she was also like in primary school. She often invited by the head master because she always steals something purple. So it's really happened. She's the kind of girl who, like, if I wear something purple in the day, she will hate me for the day. So she doesn't want to be near me at all. So she thinks that she owns like everything purple is hers. I think her character is very fascinated me in a way of how much passion she has in terms of one little thing, and how much ownership that that happens in that certain color, even though it's like very little thing that maybe people think it's not important at all, but for her it's important. So those kind of emotion or like passion is always interesting, fascinates me in a way. And the other thing is that as a color as well, purple in Indonesia, we have a certain stereotype on it. We always acknowledge it as a color of I don't know if it's a word in English, widower or divorcer. Divorcee in Indonesia, it's the same. Yeah. It's the same word. Yeah. Janda.
Janda.
Yeah. So it's the same word in Indonesia. So it's the color of janda, which is what though I don't know where it comes from, but how come we can have a stereotype for color? And it's a negative stereotype as well for widower and or this divorcee in this case. So these kind of questions that I want to play around as well within the character. Yeah.
Do you see, yourself making more films revolving around stories like this? Because of course, around I think Southeast Asia, you see a lot more like I think films and narrative revolving around the lives of like women, outside of big cities. And I guess, being a woman, like, a woman director yourself, it must at some point take a toll, right, to do such heavy stories. But do you see yourself doing like stories like this more stories like this in the near future?
Well, for me as a director, there are certain things that I always have a concern about. If you also see my other films, I always love to talk in a sociological aspect about the society and the culture. I like to talk about gender equity as well in my work. So having a woman voice and woman heroine is always one of the things that I like to do. I also like to talk about environmental connection issues and everything else. So I think even next, that's also one of the things that I always fun to do, like to do. Although I also my creative process is very organic in a way. I don't know what hits me, what story hits me in the next, but and I think every story has its needs, its own needs. I always see my films as my daughter as well, my babies. And as a parents raising babies, sometimes they have characters, they already have characters that maybe in the first place you don't know about them, but then during the process you get to know them, and then they grow up as their character as they want to be. That's why I always feel that every story has its own needs and its own character that I have to find out as director.
Yeah, so I think, watching your, like how I've been grown up watching your films in that sense, I think that struck me, in the structure and how you, like you mentioned earlier, you see things in a sociological like manner, it's not just, okay, let's do a story for the sake of doing a story. Um, and and I just would like to know, I think, how, what's the process of like, other than like getting all these stories, how do you like unpack, all these very like heavy topics, with everything that's going on around, like, not just I guess Indonesia, but around the world as well as a filmmaker, how do you try to raise all these issues, in one film?
Well, usually my ideas was very big in the beginning. Like for example, the scene in Nansin, I want to talk about the duality and our philosophy of life, like how we connect as Indonesian to the universe and to life itself. So it's a very, very big topic where then the story can be different things again, and the story is sort of like the train to get into that points. And as well as in Yuni as well, my my big topic is actually about women's choices and the structural conflict, and how not only women actually in Yuni, but a lot of us living in a double life. We always want to serve the society. We want to be accepted in a way that in terms of marriage, that's one of the things that the society always expected from us, and we want to serve that, but we also have our own thing. So those kind of confusedness facing the structural conflict within the society is something that I want to talk about in Uni. And and then the story can be different thing again. I mean, the story and then the character was like that and stuff, but that subtext, that topic, it's actually always been in my head. That's why in Uni you feel like you meet people, you meet other girls who also have their own stories without losing the main story of Uni. And what amazing from filmmaking is that you have many elements actually to talk about things. Like for example, in Uni, I play around with textures and colors, how colors can portray that double life feelings, and how textures also can give more depth about the structural conflict within the society. And then also we have sound and poems, and music, shots and cinematography and everything. So I like, I mean, maybe because also for me, Indonesian, maybe myself as well as an Indonesian, we're not very confrontative people in a way. As an Indonesian, I don't like to be very verbal on things, because a lot of things cannot be explained in Indonesia as well. So I'd like to show it into things, into elements. I like to tell stories within the elements as well. I think that's how I read the films. Yeah.
I think the last question I have for you is actually about the ending. So when I watched it, there's this strange hanging feeling of like gloom, but also hope, and like, at the end of the day, I'm still thinking about it because I'm still trying to process like the ending. Was it intentional? Where yeah, to provoke that kind of like feeling of the viewers.
Although this is very interesting, actually, the discussion about the endings of Yuni. But what do you think the ending was? What do you think the ending was?
So I watched it with my mom and we had got into this whole debate about the ending.
Yes.
And it felt like, for me at least, I think watching it, okay, I would recommend like watching it with your mother because it's very interesting. It's different generation and we got into this whole conversation from the start to the end. And then she's like trying to, I mean, she was born and raised here, but she's also trying to relate to her family back in like Indonesia. And we just like, for me, it was like, I guess maybe as like a younger like woman, I felt like there was still a bit of like optimism, because I think towards the end I thought like, oh, okay, oh no, she's gonna like end up with, okay, I try not to, I don't know if I'm allowed to spoil it, but like, with teacher. But then when she escaped in that sense, but she's just like floating. I guess for me it's like it's a reality for many women. It's not necessarily like, okay, like a bad thing, but also there's still a lot like that's gonna go on. And then that moment, it felt like, for me when I was watching her, it felt like Yuni just for that second found that space for herself. And I guess for my mom, it felt like she just wanted, I think she was hoping that, she ran away and like just like escape, which I guess maybe is a reflection of woman her time, So I thought it was very like the ending kind of like evoked a lot of very interesting emotions of me that I have to admit, I'm still trying to like unpack, which is great. I like movies that make me think even after like everything. So for you, like when you wrote the ending, like what was going through your mind?
I know since the beginning, I know that I want that, even though, I mean, as a woman, we know that we have a lot of choices, like, and face into choices every time. But I know that at the end, Yuni should be with herself. I mean, any kind of decision, it has to be her own decision without anyone on it. So I want that since the beginning. And also, I think one of the visuals that I have directly, even before I write the films, is actually the last shot of the film. I mean, I already have that image since the beginning. So even I think during the funding session, like a couple of years ago, I already have that image in my t-shirt and everything. So it's one of the image that are already in my head since the beginning. Although in the beginning, of course, I don't know where also to put it in the story. But I think I like what you said as well. I think it's important to end it with sort of like a feeling, to summarize it. It's a very metaphoric image as well. And I like to end it with water as well, in a way, as part of the elements that these girls always run into. So yeah, I think that's only my point, but it's a very open ending, and it's true, it makes a lot of discussion to people, and a lot of people also ask me about what actually happened about that. But no, actually it's just an image that already been there since the beginning.
And I kind of like it because it's not people like, it's not the easy way out where, okay, she gets a happy ending or she doesn't, but it reflects the reality of the situation where it's gray, like it's a continuous fight, and I thought like, like I said, it's very important that she's like with herself, and you don't get a lot of that kind of stories, especially when the main character or the lead is like, a young girl, so it's like love centric, Yeah, so I thought like the ending was like really powerful, where it makes you think, and it's really a reflection of all things are. So maybe like we could end off. Do you have anything to share with our viewers in Singapore?
No, I think is enjoy the film. Since I cannot be there, so please share as well what you think in social media or something. Maybe I'd like to hear about it. So
Okay, thank you, Kamila. And for everyone, Yuni opens in the Singapore International Film Festival soon, so catch your tickets. Thank you.
thank you.